Welcome back to Hopeful Horizon, where every story inspires, uplifts, and brings hope. Today, we have a heartfelt and transformative journey that will stay with you long after it's told. In this powerful story, we follow Marcus, a young man from a troubled neighborhood who turns to crime to support his ailing mother. But one fateful night, a life-altering encounter with a compassionate stranger sets Marcus on a path he never imagined. What happens next is a testament to the power of second chances and the impact of love and mentorship. If you enjoy stories that reveal the strength of the human spirit, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss another inspiring episode. And as always, let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. We love hearing your stories of hope. The rain fell softly against the cracked windows of Marcus's small, dimly lit apartment. At 16, he had already seen more struggle and pain than most people experience in a lifetime. The neighborhood he grew up in wasn't forgiving. It was a place where dreams were crushed before they had a chance to bloom, and where survival often meant making decisions that would haunt you for the rest of your life. Marcus glanced at the empty bottles of medication sitting on the kitchen counter, his heart sinking. His mother, who had once been vibrant and full of life, now lay bedridden in their small living room, battling a sickness that only grew worse by the day. The medical bills were piling up, and the prescriptions she needed were more expensive than ever. Every dollar they had went toward keeping her alive, but it was never enough. Sitting on the torn couch, Marcus weighed his options. The streets had taught him one thing: no one was coming to save him. He was on his own. He had been stealing for months now, taking whatever he could to sell or trade just to keep the lights on and his mother's medication stocked. It wasn't about greed or malice. He wasn't like the other kids who stole for kicks. Marcus was doing it out of necessity. That night, dressed in all black, Marcus slipped his small handgun into the waistband of his pants. He wasn't proud of what he had become, but pride didn't pay the bills. And tonight, he was going to do something bigger, something that might change their situation for good. He had heard about a nice house on the other side of the neighborhood, one that always had expensive cars parked in front and windows that gleamed with wealth. Marcus didn't know who lived there, but he knew if he could get inside, he could take enough to give him and his mother a fighting chance. As he moved silently through the streets, the weight of the gun felt heavier than usual. He hated carrying it, but it was necessary in this world. As he approached the house, his heart raced, but his mind was steady. This wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. The backyard was quiet, with nothing but the sound of distant sirens and the occasional rustle of wind through the trees. Marcus crouched near the back door, his breath shallow. He had done his research. This place was supposed to be empty. He pulled out his tools, preparing to break in, when suddenly, the porch light flicked on. His heart leapt into his throat. He wasn't alone. The back door swung open, and standing there was a tall, muscular man holding a shotgun. Marcus froze, his hand instinctively moving toward his waistband. He had been in situations like this before, but never with someone who looked as ready to fight as this man did. "Don't move," the man's voice boomed, steady but without malice. Marcus's fingers wrapped around the grip of his gun, but he didn't pull it out. The man, dressed in sweatpants and a t-shirt, pointed the shotgun at Marcus, but his eyes weren't filled with anger or fear. They were filled with something else. Understanding. Marcus slowly pulled his gun out and pointed it back, his hands shaking. They stood there in silence, guns aimed at each other, as the rain poured down harder around them. Marcus knew this was it. If he made one wrong move, he was dead. "Put it down," the man said, his voice calm. "You don't want this." Marcus's breathing was ragged. He had no idea what to do. He had faced cops before, other thugs from the neighborhood, but this was different. This man didn't seem like he was trying to hurt him. "Put it down, kid. Let's just talk," the man said again, his eyes softening. After what felt like an eternity, Marcus slowly lowered his gun. The man did the same, placing the shotgun against the wall near the door. "I'm not going to shoot you," the man said, stepping forward cautiously. "I've been where you are." Marcus frowned, his mind racing. "What do you mean?" The man took another step closer, still watching Marcus carefully. "I know what it's like to grow up in a place like this. I know what it's like to feel like you've got no other choice." The man introduced himself as Darnell, and as they stood in the rain, he told Marcus about his own past. Darnell had grown up in the same rough streets, doing whatever he could to get by. He had stolen, fought, and even been in trouble with the law. But somehow, through luck or fate, he had managed to turn his life around. Now, he was the CEO of a company downtown, far removed from the life he once knew. "I was you once," Darnell said quietly, sitting down on the back steps of his house. He motioned for Marcus to do the same. Marcus hesitated before sitting beside him, the weight of the gun still in his hand, though now he felt no need to use it. "I didn't have anyone to pull me out of that mess," Darnell continued. "But I see you, kid. You're not just some thug out here for fun. You've got a reason, don't you?" Marcus swallowed hard, feeling the emotions building up inside him. He wanted to stay tough, to keep that wall up. But something about Darnell's words broke through. His voice cracked as he began to speak. "My mom, she's sick, real sick, and I've got nothing. No one's helping us. So I've been doing what I can to get by." Darnell nodded, not judging, just listening. "I get it. It's hard out here. But this ain't the way. You know that, don't you?" Marcus couldn't hold back the tears any longer. They streamed down his face, mixing with the rain. He felt small, vulnerable, exposed in a way he hadn't been in years. Darnell put a hand on his shoulder, his grip firm but comforting. "You're better than this," Darnell said. "I can help you. Let me help you and your mom." Marcus looked up, his vision blurred by tears. "Why would you do that for me?" Darnell smiled. "Because someone should have done it for me when I was your age. Let's get your mom the help she needs, and let's get you out of this life." As the weeks passed, Marcus found himself in a strange new world. He and Darnell kept in touch, with Darnell helping to pay for his mother's medication and hospital bills. Marcus had never known kindness like this, someone who didn't want anything in return, who just wanted to see him succeed. Darnell took Marcus under his wing, showing him the ropes of the business world. He introduced him to people who could offer guidance, education, and mentorship. It was difficult at first. Marcus's mind was still set in survival mode, and he didn't trust easily. But as time went on, he started to see that there was another way, a better way. Marcus also began focusing more on school, something he had once seen as a waste of time. With Darnell's encouragement, he started taking his studies seriously, realizing that education was the key to a future he hadn't thought was possible. There were setbacks, of course. Marcus still had friends in the streets, and it was hard to leave that life behind. There were days when the pull of the old ways was strong, but Darnell was always there to remind him that he was capable of more. As months turned into years, Marcus transformed. He became a role model in his community, helping other kids who were in the same position he once was. He volunteered at local shelters, mentored younger boys, and shared his story with anyone who would listen. And through it all, Darnell was there, supporting him every step of the way. Their bond had grown stronger than Marcus ever thought possible. Darnell wasn't just a mentor. He had become a father figure to Marcus, someone who showed him what true strength and compassion looked like. Eventually, Marcus graduated high school, something he once thought was impossible. On the day of his graduation, Darnell stood in the front row, clapping the loudest, his face beaming with pride. But that wasn't the end of Marcus's journey. With Darnell's help, he got into college, where he studied business, following in Darnell's footsteps. After college, Marcus was offered a job at Darnell's company. It wasn't just any job, though. Darnell had been grooming him for leadership, and now it was time for Marcus to step up. He started working as an assistant, learning the ins and outs of the business world. And just like before, Darnell was there to guide him, teaching him everything he knew. It wasn't always easy. There were challenges, moments of doubt, but Marcus knew that he had been given a second chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. One day, after a long meeting, Darnell pulled Marcus aside. "You've come a long way," he said with a smile. "I'm proud of you, kid. You've got a bright future ahead of you." Marcus smiled back, feeling a sense of pride he had never felt before. "I couldn't have done it without you," he replied, his voice carrying the weight of gratitude that words alone couldn't express. Darnell had been more than a mentor. He had been the father figure Marcus never had, guiding him from the darkest parts of his life to a place where he could finally see a future filled with hope. Darnell placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder, his grip firm and reassuring. "Maybe not," he said, "but you're the one who put in the work. You made the choice to change." Those words hit Marcus harder than any compliment he had ever received. He thought back to the boy he had been, standing in the rain with a gun in his hand, scared and desperate. The idea that he could be anything more than that seemed impossible back then. But now, standing in the office of a thriving company, wearing a suit instead of a hoodie, he knew how far he had come. The journey hadn't been easy. Marcus had struggled to adapt to the corporate world, where the rules were different and the stakes were high. There had been days when he doubted himself, when the old voices from the streets whispered in his ear that he didn't belong. But every time he felt himself slipping, Darnell was there to remind him that he was capable of greatness. Marcus remembered the late nights working on projects, the endless meetings, and the constant pressure to perform. At first, it had been overwhelming, but as time went on, he found his rhythm. He started to see the connections between the business world and the streets. Both required strategy, resilience, and the ability to read people. The same skills that had once kept him alive on the streets were now helping him thrive in boardrooms. Darnell had taught him everything, from managing finances to leading teams, but the most important lesson had been one of compassion. Leadership isn't just about making money, Darnell had told him early on. It's about lifting people up. It's about using your power to make a difference. Those words had stuck with Marcus, and he carried them with him every day. He saw how Darnell ran his company, not just as a business, but as a community. Employees were treated with respect, and the company gave back to the neighborhoods that needed it most. Marcus admired that and vowed to lead the same way. As the months passed, Marcus's role at the company grew. He was no longer just an assistant. Darnell began trusting him with more responsibilities, allowing him to make decisions and lead projects. The employees respected him, not because of his title, but because they could see the passion he brought to the job. Marcus was driven not just by ambition, but by the desire to create opportunities for others, just as Darnell had done for him. One day, after a particularly challenging project had been successfully completed, Darnell called Marcus into his office. The large windows behind Darnell's desk framed the city skyline, a reminder of how far both men had come. Darnell sat back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Marcus, it's time," he said, his voice steady but serious. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Time for what?" Darnell smiled, leaning forward. "It's time for you to take the next step. I've been grooming you for leadership, and I think you're ready. I want you to take over as the COO of the company." Marcus felt the air leave his lungs. Chief Operating Officer? It was a position of immense responsibility, one that would make him second in command of the entire company. For a moment, he was speechless. "Are you serious?" Marcus finally managed to ask, his heart racing. "Dead serious," Darnell replied, his tone leaving no room for doubt. "You've earned it. I've watched you grow from that kid on my porch to a man who's capable of leading this company into the future. I trust you, Marcus." The weight of Darnell's words sank in, and Marcus felt a mix of emotions, pride, gratitude, and a little bit of fear. This was the moment he had been working toward, the moment that would solidify everything he had fought for. But along with that came the realization of how far he had come. "I don't know what to say," Marcus admitted, still processing the magnitude of the offer. "You don't have to say anything," Darnell said, standing up and walking over to him. "Just keep being who you are. That's all you need to succeed." They stood there for a moment, the gravity of the situation hanging between them. Then, Darnell extended his hand. "Welcome to the future, COO." Marcus shook his hand, feeling a surge of confidence wash over him. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I won't let you down." Darnell smiled, his eyes full of pride. "I know you won't." Months later, Marcus stood in the same backyard where his life had changed forever. The rain had stopped, and the sky was clear, stars twinkling above like distant beacons of hope. The house had become a symbol for him, not of the fear and desperation that had once consumed him, but of the possibilities that lay ahead. His mother, now healthy thanks to Darnell's help, stood beside him, beaming with pride. She had watched her son transform from a scared boy into a confident young man, and there was no prouder mother in the world. As Marcus looked out at the world before him, he knew his journey wasn't over. There were still challenges to face, obstacles to overcome, but now he had the tools to handle them. He had learned that life wasn't just about survival. It was about thriving, about using the opportunities you're given to make a difference. And that's exactly what Marcus planned to do. With Darnell's guidance, he had become more than just another statistic from the streets. He had become a leader, a mentor, and a beacon of hope for others who found themselves trapped in the same cycle he had once been caught in. As he walked back into the house, his mother at his side, Marcus knew one thing for sure. His life had been transformed, and now it was his turn to help transform the lives of others. And that, more than anything, was his greatest accomplishment. Thank you for joining us on this powerful and emotional journey of redemption, transformation, and second chances. Marcus's story reminds us that no matter where we come from or the struggles we face, there is always hope for change when compassion and opportunity are extended. His journey from the streets to success shows that with the right support, anyone can rise above their circumstances and create a better future. If this story moved you, leave a comment below and share it with someone who might need a reminder that their life can turn around too. Don't forget to subscribe to Hopeful Horizon for more inspiring and uplifting stories. Remember, it's never too late to make a difference in your life or in someone else's. Stay hopeful and keep striving for greatness.